Inflation data just came out and the CPI is higher than expected, higher than it's been in 31 years. But it's a lie. I'll explain coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, there's two camps on inflation. Those of you that think that inflation is actually a problem and we've got to figure it out, and those of you that are wrong. I'm just kidding. There used to be two camps. People that thought, hey, inflation might get out of control, and people that thought, no, the Fed has got this thing under control. It's transitory. We'll be able to contain it. That's not true. And the Fed has essentially admitted that in a way, they've framed it so to not freak the market out, but it has surpassed their expectations, and they continue to say, well, we're going to get it under control, or it's not going to remain this high very long, and it'll start calming down. But listen, when the CPI information just came out earlier this week, came out at 6.2%, that surpassed expectations, and that's the highest number that we've seen with the CPI in 31 years. It got the White House's attention, said everything we're going to do, all this money printing and extra spending we're going to do is to help inflation. That's a joke. But despite that 6.2% year over year increase in the CPI, that's not the full story. That's a lie. That's not correct. Let's dig in. All right, so check out this data from shadowstats.com, taking a look at government data and then telling you the truth, giving you the real data. So check this out. So the 6.22 of CPI was higher than the 5.9 expected, and it was just 0.05% shy of the 31-year high of 6.39%. But hang on. It's also 0.08% shy of the 39-year high, going back to July 1982. Now, seriously, guys, if we are looking at inflation data where we can say, yeah, that's pretty close to what we saw in the early 80s. Yes, I know that's, while it was coming down, but you never want to be in a time period where you're comparing inflation back to what happened in the early 80s. Okay, but what's the real story? What if we looked at inflation back how they used to calculate it back in the 80s or even the 90s before they tinkered with it to manipulate the data? Let's take a look at that. The alternative CPI annual inflation, this is based on the 1980 base calculation, jumped to, get this guys, 14.3%. That is the strongest reading since not 31 years, but since June of 1980 when it was 14.4%. Guys, that is astounding. That is astounding. And so that's based on how they calculated it back in 1980 before they tinkered with the CPI and adjusted how, manipulated the calculation. Take a look at these charts as well. So this top chart of the CPI reflects an estimate of inflation for today as if it were calculated the same way inflation was calculated back in 1990. You can see that's pushing up against 10% today. Way higher, far exceeding any other time in this, recent decades here. But then the one that I already pointed out just a moment ago, if you look at the 1980 base rate, look at that chart, my goodness, guys, nearly 15%, far exceeding any time in recent history and exceeding the inflation spike that we saw back in the 08 kind of Great Recession time period, just above that as well. So my goodness, scary information here with inflation, the CPI, and the actual numbers. So what do you do? Guys, inflation is going to be a problem. I think it will be a problem. To me, we are standing right now with this inflation data coming out in the latter part of the year. Most offices, most businesses if they, maybe they've already offered some raises or some bonuses or whatever, but most of them do it on an annual basis about this time of year. Guys, we haven't even seen increased wages yet, and when increased wages come in, I just expect prices to reset. Also, oftentimes, many businesses set prices, establish prices on an annual basis as well. Some of this inflation stuff hasn't even been priced in. So what do? It's going to sound geeky, but take these action steps. Number one, work on your budget. Take a look. Okay, how are we doing? Do we have enough margin in our financial life that if prices go up significantly, it's not going to squeeze out the needs? Maybe it will limit some of the wants, but it's not going to squeeze out the needs. That's number one. Look at your budget. Within that budget, you'll then be able to say, well, if inflation is high, is there something I can substitute? For me, the best example is, listen, I love steak, but if steak gets too expensive, I'm switching to chicken. If chicken gets too expensive, I'm switching to salad. And if salad is too expensive, I'm eating at home. I mean, honestly, that's how it is. That's how substitution works. Work on your budget. Next, tune into your long-term financial goals. Are you on pace? Are you ahead of pace? Are you behind pace? Tune into those goals to make sure you know where you stand and know what you need to be doing to get on pace, stay on pace, or even get ahead of pace. And then with that, stress test your financial goals, your financial plan, specifically your retirement plan, against high inflation. Many people, I've warned of the danger of just doing a quick online retirement calculator and saying, that works, or it doesn't work, or whatever. You have no idea what they're assuming for inflation, and so many have been assuming 1%, 1.5%, 2% inflation, not anticipating realistic inflation, especially realistic as we see now. So stress test that. And then finally, make sure that you've got an investment strategy that is appropriate for an inflationary environment, okay? So make sure you're properly diversified. Make sure that the individual holdings that you have are structured in a way that should we see runaway inflation, that you're protected, okay? So for us, that's a broadly diversified strategy, but also a momentum investment as well. But depending on your situation, should you add more tips? Should you add other types of alternatives to help in this potentially high inflationary environment? Work with your CFP on those things. We have been saying the CPI is a CP lie. This data reveals it. And as we see more and more inflation or higher and higher inflation numbers, be sure you're working with your CFP to take appropriate steps in your financial life. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can always contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there too, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.